Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are running this pre-market engagement session with the NHS Trust of Lewisham and Greenwich, and it's all about the Harris Family Suite. So we'll just give it a few more seconds for people to join us, and then we'll get kicked off. So let me see who we've got here. We've got people coming in now. So please just give us a few seconds while people are joining. My name is Gillian Askew. I'm one of your hosts for today. I'm joined by my colleague Aidan, who is from Lewisham and Greenwich NHS Trust, and we'll kick off in just a second. I can't see Jake in the attendee list, Aidan, so I think we'll just crack on, shall we?
Well, I've got a call from him now.
Okay.
1 second.
No problem. Whilst Aidan's just doing that, I'll just cover some quick housekeeping before we get started. So we are recording the session today, so a copy of the recording will be sent out to everybody that's registered. And we will also send a copy of the slides out in PDF format to everyone. So please don't worry about taking too many notes. The chat is enabled today, so if you do want to use the chat functionality and the Q&A functionality, you can do so. Aidan and I will keep an eye on them whilst we are going through this session this morning. We've earmarked an hour. We may not need that whole hour, but if we do, that's no problem. So we'll just allow people to keep joining us. We've got a good number of participants that are joining as we speak. And as soon as Aidan is ready, we'll get kicked off. What we're going to run through is some information on the Harris Family Suite itself, some technical information, and then we'll just run through the support offer from Go for Growth, and then there will be time for Q&A at the end. So I see that we've got all of our presenters now, which is good news. Hi, Jake. Hi, Jerry. I think both are here. Hi, Aidan. Are we all right?
Yes, we're all ready.
Cool. Aidan, if you just tell me when you want me to kick the slides on, and I will do so. But over to you if you want to do your introductions and kick off.
Hi, everybody. I'm Aidan Tullock. I'm part of the redevelopment team at Lewisham and Greenwich. And thank you for joining for the early market engagement. Yeah, to the next slide, please, Jill. Thank you. So just a bit of information about the trust, our values. Obviously working with the trust, respect everybody working within our values. Obviously it's a 24/7 live environment, hospital. So yeah, these are our values: respect, compassion, and inclusion. It's not just yourselves that be working in the hospital, you got your patients, staff. Patients are always very vulnerable in a situation, so it's just making sure we look out for everybody and treat everyone how they want to be treated. So that's a bit of NHS housekeeping with the values there. Yeah, Jill, next slide, please. Project information. Yeah, next, thank you. Yeah, so essentially this started around as a feasibility study back in March. We had a look at many areas within this building and the neighboring building, and it was opted to go forward with the Harris Family Suite because of its ease and expedite to make it available for us. So less work would be available to vacate that space. So currently going through that process now. The location is currently occupied by clinical admin and is flanked by the pedestrian ward and restaurant. And yeah, this area was previously used as ward accommodation. And yes, this building is defined as a HRB, respect to the Building Safety Act. And there will be a segment on that Jake will cover later. Next, please, Jill. So this is the project team here. So this is just the general structure on the trust side. So the director is Jess Haynes. So I report directly into her. I'm the program manager part of this project. We've got Jake and Jerry who are on this as project managers. They're from WT. Our clinical lead is Joe Peck. And yeah, we've got the stakeholders within the trust like the fire officer, security officers, infection control, and the arts coordinator. We've liaised with like the fire officer and security officer in regards to layouts. I'm going through the appropriate governance with IPC, and we're currently in the process of coordinating with the arts manager in order to go for like an interior art strategy for this project as well. So next slide, please. And this is the design team. So architects we've got here, we've got Luan Davis. We've got some of them there today on this call. So we've got Moritz, Ida, Abby, part of the team there. BSP are our MEP engineers. The director is Patrick, but we've got Garode and Chris leading from the mechanical and electrical side. Structural engineers, we've got Parega, Fraser Rob, and we've also got, I think, Michael, who is now going to be taking over the structural bit for Fraser, and principal designer for CDM and BSA is Jim Hegarty from Blue Light Management, and the QS or course manager we've got on this project is Pang. He's from Ingleton Wood. All this project team has a vast NHS experience, and yes, a pleasure to be working with them. We currently are at stage 3, and we'll speak about that later on within the program section. Next slide, please, Jill. Thank you. So outline, specification, and drawings. So the nitty gritty, or say nitty gritty, it's a bit of an overview, but the number of proposed beds is 14, and the type of use is a general ward. Infrastructure wise, 2 options have been explored for the provision of LTHW and chilled water from the existing site infrastructure and from the standalone plant, but the standalone plant has been the agreed way to move forward. And we move on to the drawings slide. Thank you. So the existing on your left hand side, as you can see, as I previously said earlier, this was used to be a ward in its previous life, currently occupied by clinical admin. And on the right hand side, here's the proposed. So you can see the 14 beds with 2 side rooms also. It's important to note that these side rooms are not isolation rooms, so they do not have the dedicated supply and extract and dedicated AHU. This is just going to have air changes up to 10, just to provide the clinical team with a bit of flexibility when we do reach those high pressures in winter, as we do realize that at the trust there is a lack of isolation rooms or lack of single room side rooms at the trust. So that is the area in question. That is the layout that we're running through at the moment. All agreed, going through the right governance. And yes, next slide, please, Joel. Location. So this is to put a visualizer to what I'm just describing. So this is the AOO block. And yeah, level 1, that's where the Harris family suite currently is. And the proposed location of the plant can be seen on the roof, right on the edge of the roof there. This will require planning, and we're going through the right channels to make this happen. And we're going through design at the moment in regards to see structurally and feasibly where this can definitely be put along this roof. We're not too sure which section right now, but it might need to be moved a little bit further down from where you see on a rectangle right on the side, but that will be completed within the next stage. So yeah, that was a visualizer. And yeah, to the next slide, please, Jewel. Okay, so this is where I'll pass on to Jake, who will talk through the HRB interface, design team coordination, and gateway to submissions. Thank you.
Thanks, Aidan. Hi, everyone. Jake Walker, so as Aidan said, work for WT, and myself and Jerry are providing PM support for the trust on this one. Without wanting to turn this into a sort of webinar around HRBs, I'm sure everybody's familiar with them now, worked on them or knows of them. We've got quite a specific way that we want to set this project up with a contractor. And what we really want to do is bring a contractor in, stage 3, work with them to build up and develop the stage 4. It's not going to be a design and build, it's going to be a JCT with CDP. But because of the what we need to do around the Gateway Act and the Building Safety Act and the Gateway 2 and 3, we really need that contractor input and support at an earlier stage. We don't want to develop up to a stage 4 and then ask the contractor to go away and pull in the CDP items. It will just delay the process even more. We want to do it alongside the team. So we want to bring a contractor in at stage 3. They will then incorporate their CDP design. They'll do some surveys and things like that. And we can talk about the scope of the PCSA that we're proposing in a minute. But there are some key documents that you need included within the Gateway 2 submission, which is what we need to get approved to actually be able to start on site. So I'll run through these quickly and talk a little bit about the scope that we're proposing, how we want to set it up and the programme. But so one of the first things you need is a competency declaration. It should be quite simple, really. It's a written declaration. We need them from the designers as well, but from the contractor to essentially say that they are competent to take on this type of project. You'll usually include a bit of previous experience, any sort of accreditations that you have. You have to declare if there's been anything you've gone against your health and safety or anything like that in the past, and then we'll review them client side and we'll decide if that meets the criteria that we need to take them forward. So that's one document. Jill, next slide, please. Construction control plans, the next one. So it's quite a big one from contractor side. So it's not necessarily the same as a construction phase plan that you might traditionally do, but it needs to talk about sort of how you'll manage the site, how design will be managed on site, how, logistics, everything. It needs to play into it. So there's quite a lot of information that needs to go into this. Really, again, that's like record information, how when there are changes on site implemented, how that'll be logged. It kind of links up with some other documents that we'll go through as well, but it basically is a document that we'll submit, but can evolve over time as well during the process. And it has to talk about not just necessarily from the contractor's perspective, but the designer's perspective as well. We've got a lot of stuff on this that we've done on other projects recently, so we'll help develop these with whatever contractor we take forward on this project, and we can review and build them up together in the PCSA process. But these deliverables will be part of the PCSA scope. So construction control plan. Next one, Jill. Change control plan. Quite straightforward one, this really, because we've all done, change control plans and things like that in the past, and how we do that. But it's just basically a document to state how you will manage change on site, what the processes will be, how they'll be implemented, how they'll be measured and monitored throughout the project. Again, it's an evolving document, this, as it goes on, but something that we need to put in place for the Gateway 2. And again, something that we've done a lot of in the past, so we can work with a contractor on and build up together. Next one, Jill. Mandatory occurrence reporting plan. Bit like the change control plan, really, as well. Just how you're going to report anything that happens on site, so occurrences and things on site. So it's about having that reporting process set out beforehand, showing the regulator this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to manage it on site, and we're not just going to turn up and kind of crack on. We've got processes in place and governance, and this is how we're going to do it. And again, it's something that we'll build up as a team alongside the contractor and the design team as well. But again, it's a key document that needs to be included in a submission. So next one, Jill. This is just an example of submission pack items that we've taken from other projects, so what needs to be included. There's the sort of genuine, general stuff that you would always see in there in terms of design and things like that, but you need your overall compliance report, which is essentially evidencing your compliance with the building regs. So it's quite a bit of detail in there that you need to show. It's not enough now with the Gateway to just sort of say we are compliant. You have to evidence compliance as well. So it has to be part of the submission. This again will link in with the design team as well, though. So this isn't necessarily all for the contractor, because there's a lot of design stuff here. It's just an example of what we need to put in. So you've got your overarching executive summary. That just basically almost a little bit like a design access statement would do. A summary of the project, summary of the reports and everything. Building control tracker document, that's just tracking everything against each building regulation that's relevant to this project. Then from an architectural perspective, they'll have their compliance statement to show how they've complied with the building regs within their stuff. Drawings and schedules, specs have to be very detailed at this stage, which is why we pull a contractor in now and get all the CDP fully designed, because you really need to evidence everything with this, and at a really well coordinated design, and then their competency declaration. That basically is the same for all of the design, mechanical, electrical, structural as well, just with the addition of calculations. Just jump to the next one, Jill. It just carries on. Then just a few things in terms of lessons learned that we've personally learned from other HRBs that we've been working on, and how they're kind of influencing what we want to do on this one. So design compliance is vital. So we need to make sure that we've got this thing fully designed out. What we don't want to do is get to site and realise that something hasn't worked in the design. Then we have to make a major change, which means then you have to go back to the regulator, notify them of that, and you potentially stop works on that piece of work for what could be 6 to 8 weeks, potentially longer with the lead times you're getting at the moment. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that everything has been checked, is fully coordinated, which is why the next point, coordination, is key. We want to make sure that all the surveys and extensive surveys are carried out. Now, we've done some surveys already on this, but we also want the contractors to come in and fully survey the area, but also the service connections, any existing plant that we're proposing to use, any existing service connections, just to validate and make sure that everything is fully designed and coordinated and it works, and there aren't any surprises on site. Record information, again, this is saying that we'll sit more on this side of the fence and making sure that we can give you the right record information, it's up to date. We don't want to give you something that's out of date and then find out too late. And then the next point was just understanding the task, to make sure that everybody, and that's from the principal contractor perspective to the design team to us, to QS, to everybody, and then down the supply chain as well, fully understands what they're being asked to do here and the sort of brevity of the task. It's quite a big undertaking, this. The projects that we've done already, you're going into so much more detail on the design than you usually would, to try and get a successful submission. Obviously, the lead times are pretty long on this at the moment. There was talk of sort of 12 weeks. We're hearing that nobody's really hitting that in terms of the regulator, so it could be longer. We're probably expecting on this or programming something between 16 and 18 weeks from submission of the Gateway 2 for the regulator to review, and then touch wood, come back with successful application. But that's why we want to make sure that we do the right amount of work now, and that we don't risk a rejection. So in terms of how we want to kind of set this up from a contractor perspective, and in terms of program and things like that, our plan is to bring a contractor in, like we said, early. So after stage 3 is complete, which we're looking at around sort of end of Jan, we'll take a couple of weeks to badge everything up, and then we want to try and get the tender out for a PCSA scope mid-Feb. We want to probably put, say, like a 4 to 5 week period on that for a pricing for the tender. But within that, there will be a scope, a PCSA scope to price, and then we want a benchmark price on the stage 3. So quite a high level benchmark price. We're not necessarily going to hold people to that because there's only so much information you've got there, of course. The PCSA scope itself, what we're looking for is surveys to be done. So we'll list out the surveys that we think are necessary, but we want to get in there and we want to check the whole area out, any dependencies between services throughout, any connection points, existing DBs, existing plant, all that kind of stuff will make part of the surveys. Existing fire stopping in areas that we might not be touching, because we need to know if we need to upgrade that, because that's a big one. There'll be obviously the key documents that we discussed, like construction control plan, change control, and things like that. They'll all be part of the scope. And then the big one that we really need, and why we need to pull someone in at stage 3, is the CDP elements. So CDP will be your usual suspects. It'll be your medical gas, it'll be your fire alarms, security, all those kind of things that you would generally see. And this is always the danger with places like this, is that we know incumbents can sometimes cause slow down this kind of stuff, which is why we want to get in early. But what we don't want to do is design in isolation. So we don't want to say, right, you go away and get a cost from, say, it's a static or a Chubb or something like fire alarms. We don't want to say go away and design isolation, because what we don't want to do is that design then comes back in just on a PDF off like a DWG, and then we put that in the model and it clashes with other services, and then we're constantly redesigning. So when we do the DTMs, we want it to be everybody involved. So that would be you as principal contractors, then your supply chain as well. So if you've got MEP subcontractors and the incumbent design team as well, pull them all in and make sure that we're designing collaboratively. And that should speed up the process, we believe, and make it a lot smoother. The benefit to all this, or what we see as the benefit to all this, is there's a lot more work front end now that we have to do. But when you get on site, should be less surprises, less variations, less calls for program delays and things like that, because we've done that element of design work at the front. So often we rush the site and then we realise that the record drawings weren't correct, or the design doesn't quite work because it clashes with something. So by doing this, we want to make it a lot smoother when we get to site. So everybody just kind of needs to be clear when this does go out to tender, and we'll make the scope nice and clear that it is a real collaborative design thing. Although it's not a D&B, it will have similar principles to a D&B in the way that we act and the way that we go through the PCSA. So what we're kind of looking for, as I said, is mid-Feb to get this out to tender, 4 to 5 week pricing exercise on the PCSA with a benchmark cost on the stage 3 included in that. And then probably around 14 weeks to actually complete the PCSA period, which will then be also developing from stage 3 to stage 4 within that period. So we'd want to get in early, do the surveys, then get in as early as possible with the incumbent designs and all come together, and then do that within that 14-week period, which should then align with when we kind of need to deliver this thing, because then obviously we submit and we're looking at, say, potentially 16 weeks before we can really do anything. The only other thing we haven't quite decided on yet, but we will be obviously before the tender goes out, is whether or not we come in and do some soft strip out works, which we can do, as in legally we can do under the Act, which would obviously buy us a little bit of time when we do get to site, and it would also help a little bit with the survey, but that depends on decants and things like that. So that might be the only other thing that gets added into as part of the PCSA scope that we haven't discussed. But yeah, it's a really good project, this one. It's an exciting one, and it should be a nice one to do. But we just got to be very clear on what we need from a contractor within that scope, and we'll write the scope to be clear and consistent throughout. But yeah, it's a good one to be part of. So that's it from on
you.
that, Aidan. Cheers, Jill.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you, Aidan. Thank you, Jake. We've just got a couple more slides to go through, and then we'll open up to questions, actually. And Martin, feel free to jump in at any of this if you would like to at any point. So when the tender comes out, the tender will be on the Atomis system. We've included a link to the Atomis system in there. Presumably, you might all be really super familiar with Atomis already. If you're not, the link is there. And what we've also included, just in case it might be your first time or you're not a habitual user on Atomis, we've included a couple of tutorial videos. So there is a video on how to register to Atomis if you haven't done it before, and then actually how to find and express interest in the opportunity in Atomis. There's a tutorial video of that as well, both on YouTube. And effectively, the process that a tender would typically run through would be that advertisement and then registration. You would download all of the documents. The clarification process will be open and live, which is a time-sensitive process, so it will have a closing date on when clarifications can be open till. Submission, scoring and evaluation, attempt to award, and then standstill if it's required, and then award of contract. So they're the usual steps that any public procurement would run through. And what I don't know today is really where everyone's at in terms of your experience in going through any sort of public procurement process in construction or anywhere else. And Go for Growth is a partner with Lewisham, Greenwich, NHS Trust, and our job is to try and help providers where they need it, and we're an opt-in programme to navigate that public procurement process, so the gateway to the opportunity, if you like. So what we do is to try and help upskill that understanding of the public sector process, how to take part, how to find the opportunities, how to use the portals, in this case, Atomis, the process and policy guidance of things that you would need to have in your toolkit to take part in a relevant opportunity, and thinking about what you might be asked for in terms of social impact or environmental impact as part of it. And then at the back end of any process, if it's a competition where there are winners and losers, if you happen to be unsuccessful, we can also help a provider to work through what the reasons for that unsuccessful opportunity was, to help grow and get better for new opportunities. And we do that in a number of ways, really. So we provide as individual and personalised support as we can. So if you're working through this particular process that Jake and Aidan have talked through, and you have some process-related questions in terms of how to put your answers together or how to use the portal, etc., you can come to us for very specific support. And you can do that on a one-to-one basis if you want to. If you do just want to broaden your knowledge in public procurement and how to find opportunities and how to bid for them, we have lots of workshops, training courses. We've got a learning management system, lots of guidance, lots of resources out there. So policy templates to try and help providers to get up to speed as easily and as quickly as possible when opportunities are live. You can use our self-service platform. So it's something called the Public Sector Supplier Ready accreditation, to help understand if you've got any gaps, and how to fill those gaps if you need to. Lots of embedded resources in there. And it will also help you complete any of the standard selection questionnaires also. And a version of that would normally sit at the front end of any public procurement. Importantly, all the support that Go for Growth offers to providers is offered free at point of use. So Lewisham and Greenwich NHS Trust have invested in Go for Growth, and that means that there's no cost barrier to anybody coming to Go for Growth for any of the support that you want, whether it's for this opportunity, for the Harris Family Suite, or for any future opportunities going forward. It's not time limited, and it's not specifically limited to an opportunity, and it's not specifically limited to Lewisham and Greenwich NHS Trust either. So if you are looking to grow in the public sector and want some help, just give us a shout. This is how you can get in touch with us. So in our website here, you can see at the top right-hand corner, there's something called membership resources. There's about 220 resources in there. We've got an AI-powered remote assistant called Rosa. So if you just tell Rosa what you're looking for, so it might be that you want some more information on JCT or whatever it is, you can put that into Rosa and she will return to you the resources that will be most helpful. And we're currently supporting, we've just updated our numbers actually, so we're currently supporting around 20,000 businesses, construction being one of the biggest sectors that we are active in. So anybody coming for support is definitely not alone. You can email us via this email address. You can WhatsApp, call, text, etc. via the mobile number that's on the screen. And if you did want to have a coffee and a catch up with virtual cake or real cake, you can do so through our bookable calendar, and that will give you any of the live slots that are there to talk to me or any of the team in Go for Growth. So our job is to try and help you if you need it with the process stuff from a procurement perspective. And I think that takes us to the Q&A section of the session, unless any of the people that have joined from a presenter perspective have got anything else that they would like to add before we open up for Q&A.
Yeah, was one thing, Jill, just beckoning what Jake said about how crucial it is to have contractor input to mitigate any delay, as Jake mentioned about the times in getting the response from the authority, from the trust side. We're under high pressure, as those who have had contractor NHS experience can realize. So yeah, I just second what Jake said. Yeah, it's crucial that have contractors on board that want to coordinate fully with the design team, and everybody wants to be in that room coordinating together, so people aren't designing in isolation. But yeah, that's it, Joe. Thank you.
Okay, and just to reiterate, we think that the opportunity, the tender will be live on Atomis around the end of January or mid-February, did you say, Jake?
Yeah, mid-Feb. Once
Mid-Feb.
it's all badged up and that, yeah, mid-Feb.
Okay. Atomis, like most portals, will have an alert service, but it's worth proactively checking, I think, around those dates to double check whether that opportunity is live rather than relying on the alert service, if that's useful for anybody. So we'll open up to the floor to see if there are any questions from anybody. I'll stop sharing the slides. We don't have any Q&A at the moment. There's nothing in the chat or the Q&A. If you have any questions, you can push them through to me if you want to at that Go for Growth email address, and we'll get them over to the team, or you can approach the team directly if you've got their contact details. Please feel free to use whatever method of communication will be the most useful for you. As I said at the top, whilst people might be thinking of questions, the slides will be sent out to everybody that registered, as will a copy of the recording. And I think I'm right, and Jake and Aidan, you can keep me honest with this if I'm not right. I think what we're thinking is we'll put the slides and a copy of the recording today into the clarification process once the tender is live. So even outside of registration to this event, all the information that we've shared today will be publicly available to anyone that expresses an interest in the opportunity in the future.
Yeah,
cool.
that's good.
Yeah. Okay. I know everyone's super busy, so we won't all stare at each other for half an hour. If there are any questions that you've got, please do get in touch. Failing that, we'll get the recording and the slide deck out later today or by lunchtime tomorrow at the absolute latest. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for everyone who was part of the presentation today. It was super.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, you.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.